Solo Leveling by Gong. Bonus Stories 1. Ask any student on the street what they want to be in the future, and 10 times out of 10, they'll say one of 3 jobs: a famous hunter, a staff member of a large guild, or an employee of the Hunters Association. A dumb kid would bank on becoming a famous hunter and waste their time. A smarter kid would aim for a large guild where people get paid according to their talents. The smartest kid would choose the Hunters Association, where the pay was just as good as a large guild, and there was less of a chance of getting fired, since employees were considered government workers. I was a smart kid. A very smart one, too. So when I told my parents that I wanted to work for the Hunters Association, they were actually a little disappointed. My father was hoping I'd be a judge and my mother, a doctor. Of course, I was fully aware that my parents were hoping their one and only son would follow in their respective footsteps. However, I had a dream, and that dream helped me to successfully become an employee of the Hunters Association. Why do you want to join the Hunters Association? President Gun Hego asked me this question during my job interview. At the time, I was all stiff, scolding myself for messing up my answers to the other interviewers' questions. But as soon as I heard that question, the look in my eyes changed as I gave it my full attention. Even at this moment, hunters all over are protecting civilians at the risk of their own lives. Then, who are the ones who risk their lives for the hunters? I loudly declared my intent to be one of the people protecting the hunters, as a member of the Hunters Association. I might have imagined the impressed murmurs that sounded around the room, but I clearly remember the smile that graced President Go's face in that moment. That's how I was able to become what many others dreamed of being, an employee of the Hunters Association. My parents were slightly saddened to see me go, but with their blessing, I left my beloved hometown and started my new job at the headquarters in Seoul. I was quite excited to get one step closer to fulfilling my goal of being someone who could help keep hunters safe. Things really seemed to be going my way. However, my first day on the job shattered my fantasy. I held the delusion that there was still something left that I could do when 9 years had already passed since awakened beings, gates, and magic beasts first appeared in this world. After many failures and missteps, society had already settled into a stable status quo. From the start, there never was anything a mere entry-level staff member venturing into the world on their own for the first time in their life could hope to do. Instead, I was assigned to the support team, where I would do all sorts of odd jobs. Calling them odd jobs was an understatement, though. The reality was, we were catering to the whims of the hunters working under the association. Hey, hunters in the next neighborhood get coffee or snacks before their raid. What about us? There's something I urgently need money for. Could I get an advance this month? If I join today's raid, I don't have anyone who can pick my kid up in my place. Would you be able to do it? And so it went. Someone had to take care of low-rank gates that didn't pay as well, and there were only so many hunters, so I had no choice but to meet their demands. The worst days were when hunters filed a complaint. And if a hunter who lodged a complaint suddenly threatened to quit the association, I was growing exhausted, running around trying to prevent that from happening. But while it was far from my ideal, I was slowly getting used to things. One day, when I felt like I'd been put through the ringer, I got a phone call. Ring. I wondered which hunter was calling to gripe at me this time. I picked up my phone with a sigh and was met with an irritated shout. How many times do I have to tell you not to send Ji Woo-sung? I didn't know what he was talking about, but I defaulted to an apology. I'm sorry, sir. There must have been an error when the raid team was being assembled. Could you please explain what the issue was? What is there to explain? I don't want any dead weight on my team. One hit, and he goes down. And we're supposed to clean up after his ass? I'm quitting if this happens again. And then he hung up on me. I reminded myself to have patience as I placed the receiver down, then pulled up the data on the hunter the man on the phone had mentioned in an effort to nip this in the bud. I didn't think much of it, since people demanded squad member changes for a variety of reasons, including insubordination, lack of chemistry with the team, not being good enough at fighting, and so on. Sung. He said his first name was Jin Woo? As soon as I saw Hunter Jin Woo Sung's file, I realized what the problem was. He was an E rank, and his level of magic power was the lowest even among the E rank hunters. Based on these stats, this man is basically a regular civilian. As expected, he had a long list of injuries on record. Whoa! I slammed his file shut in utter shock. This had to be wrong. If I pretended that I didn't see anything, he could very well be killed in the near future. It was then that I remembered my initial dream. Hunters risk their lives to protect civilians, but who put their lives on the line for the hunters? I nodded resolutely. A year after I joined the Hunters Association, for the very first time I found something I could do. Step 1 was talking to my boss. However, no one, from my immediate supervisor to his supervisor to the supervisor of that supervisor, was willing to get involved. In the end, I had to speak to the head of the support team. Sir, a person's life is on the line. Avoiding the issue isn't the solution here. The head of the team looked like he was seconds away from chewing out the newbie who used to be a team player, but that didn't stop me from speaking my mind. If the hunter dies during a raid, how are you going to explain his death to his family? Hey now, don't jinx it. But it is a very real possibility for Hunter Sung. Please look at his hospital records. It's a miracle that he's still alive. The manager took a minute to look over the documents I had brought, then looked up. Are you saying the association needs to step in and bar Mr. Sung from working as a hunter? Yes, that's right. If Hunter Sung continued this line of work, death would be inevitable. You say this knowing Hunter Sung's situation, right? I nodded. I was aware that Hunter Sung's mother was in the intensive care unit on life support and that her hospital bill was being subsidized, since he was affiliated with the association. But no one has ever woken up from the eternal sleep disease. A living person shouldn't die for a dead person, right? Tons of people were dying from the eternal sleep disease at this very moment. It was unfortunate, but I couldn't continue to shepherd Hunter Sung toward death for the sake of his mother. I had to save him at least. Though the team head kept trying to dissuade me, I had made up my mind, and he eventually gave in. Fine. Seeing my face light up, my manager added a condition. However, you'll need to convince Hunter Sung. He has to agree to this. That was to be expected. I would never kick Hunter Sung out of the association without his consent. I had my work cut out for me. I nodded resolutely. Understood, sir. I had never worked this hard on anything in my entire life. The most research I ever did wasn't for a presentation in front of my superiors or studying for a difficult exam, but to persuade a single man. Hunter Sung is 23, which makes him 6 years younger than me. I was so thorough that I was fairly confident going in. I was ready to lecture Hunter Sung about how he needed to quit working as a hunter and bring him to his senses. I was going to convince Hunter Sung that he needed to value his life as much as his mother's. Ding! The cafe door opened to reveal the face I had seen only as a picture in a file until now. I froze as soon as I spotted him. Hunter Sung looked around the cafe until he spotted me and took a seat across from me. Hello! As he greeted me, I found myself unable to say anything I had prepared. "We've tried to, you know." I accepted a small glass of soju from my team head and grimaced as I knocked it back. Whether it was from the burn of the alcohol or because of the heaviness in my heart, I couldn't tell. My brow remained wrinkled. "Still, it isn't right, sir. It shouldn't be like this. A 23-year-old man shouldn't have that look in his eyes." I figured Hunter Sung would be the overconfident type who was convinced he couldn't die, or the reckless type who was desperate for someone to stop him. Whichever one he was, I was confident I could persuade him. However, Jin Woo-sung was completely different from what I'd expected. He was all too aware of the reality. He had the wan smile of someone who was trembling in fear, and yet barely managing to overcome it. How could I push someone who had come so far to the edge of a cliff? I couldn't do it. And I realized that I couldn't blame my superiors for not being able to do something I couldn't do, either. My team head quietly refilled my shot glass. "So why did you choose the Hunters Association?" I hung my head as I recalled the moment when I first decided that I wanted to help hunters. When I was a kid, I was watching the news, and there was a story about a hunter who got trapped in a dungeon while trying to save his colleagues. I'd seen footage of hunters bleeding out and writhing in pain in an amusement park, a place people go to have fun. It got me thinking. Those people are bleeding because they saved others, but who's gonna save them? My parents couldn't answer my question, and that's when I decided that if no one else could, then I would be the one to help them. I would do my best to keep hunters from getting hurt or dying. But in the end, I'm no different than everyone else. I couldn't be of any help to Hunter Sung as he faced death. There was nothing I could do. My team head watched me wallowing in my misery and put down his shot glass. "What if there is something you can do?" "Huh?" I looked up as my manager pulled out a file of a high-rank awakened being from his bag and handed it to me. "There are some people who aren't materialistic and aren't hunters despite being high-rank awakened beings. How about helping the association's hunters by persuading those people to join us?" I perked up and looked down at the file. Ju-hee Lee, a B-rank healer. A high-rank healer. If a person like her worked for the association, she could prevent serious injuries and fatalities. Even a weak hunter would be able to fight as much as they wanted without worry. Hunter Sung's expression crossed my mind. My team head saw the gleam in my eyes and smiled. "So what do you think? Do you want to give it a go?" I was practically staring holes into the file as I nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, I'll do my best."